message, and it's a wonderful message today, the cosmic order and us. Would you welcome Sheila? Thank you, Sheila.
Good morning, everybody on Zoom. Good morning. Hi. And good morning, everybody here. Thank you. Thank you for coming in this midst of this frantic football season. Wow. Just going to have a drink of water. And then I'm just going to say that after I do the talk, Wayne, I don't know if you want to switch the recording off, but I'm going to go straight into a meditation. So you may want to run it together, or if you want me to stop, please let me know, and I'll wait till you get ready to record again.
I can run together the next seconds.
Sorry, I didn't hear that. What did you say?
I can run them together.
Okay, thank you. I think that would work really well. Okay, I've got to remember my gadget, haven't I? Cosmic order. And us. Order in the revealing word. The divine idea of order is the idea of adjustment, and as this is established in man's thought, in humanity's thought, humanity's mind and affairs will be at one with the universal harmony. This is the promise, which implies prosperity for all. Now, how many of you have seen the Oscar-winning film As Good as It Gets? Show of hands? Not everybody. Okay, well, it was made in 1998. However, it was a very good film. It stars Jack Nicholson, Helen Hunt and Greg Kinnear, and all three of these actors do a brilliant job with an excellent script, and I think the themes are relevant to this talk. The film is funny, moving, and shows how even someone who is deeply cynical and antisocial can radically change once they decide to take a look at themselves and adopt a new stance. Now, by taking more personal responsibility for their life, they open up to new capabilities. And as with us all, when this inner change happens, our world can seem to shift on its axis. By the end of the movie, each of these characters has done some much needed inner work. They have made different choices and changed the whole trajectory of their life. Each one is repositioned for greater happiness. They think about their present circumstances in a more constructive and positive manner, thereby enabling future possibilities to emerge and further growth to take place over time. The story moves the characters through inner transitions as they become more aware of their choices and their responses. They are no longer simply living out static, ingrown emotional patterns. The film is described as a romantic comedy, but really it's about the power of inner transformation. As the story begins, the main character, Melvin, is a highly intelligent and successful romantic writer who writes with complete insincerity about his subject. He does this as a way of mocking the absurdities he sees in other people. He's not a believer in love, nor does he admire just about anything else to do with people. His novels are very popular with women, but ironically, he does not mean anything he writes about. It's a parody of absurdity, he thinks. He has latched on, in fact, to an appetite that he is feeding for his own benefit, that he regards as perfectly foolish, a desire to live in fantasy. It is his expression of disgust towards their judgment, and he makes a good living at the expense of his authenticity. Now, Melvin is not a happy man. He is suffering OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. He avoids relationships because he holds everybody in contempt. He survives by isolating himself. But he lives in a state of dependency, relying on the attention of a professional therapist. Melvin rails at life generally and freely pours out his scorn to others in contemptuous and shocking comments. And even though we know his behaviour is symptomatic of a soul in crisis, we are horrified by him. In one highly charged scene, Melvin is challenged to do something to help the down-on-his-luck gay neighbour whom he despises. He panics and in desperation hurries to the psychiatrist's office, interrupting another client's session and frantically demanding the professional's attention for himself immediately. The therapist, however, stands his ground, refusing to see Melvin without an appointment. And furious, Melvin is forced to leave. But just as he goes through the doorway, he is struck by a sudden thought. And turning back, he glares at the startled occupants in the waiting room and shouts, "What if this is as good as it gets?" And the question just hangs in the air. So grumbling, he goes out into the street. Well, this turns out to be a light bulb moment for him, and it becomes a real turning point in his life. Moving through a doorway or a gate in literature is a classic symbol for entering a transition state. And from that point on, Melvin realises he can no longer rely on the availability of his therapist to mediate life for him. He must now act on his own. Suddenly and grudgingly, he gets the message, oh, it's up to me to make the best of things. Melvin knows he must adjust. And as he starts to deal with his immediate situation, he makes very clunky beginnings. But at least it's a start towards reforming his old behaviour patterns. Unity author Eric Butterworth says, "There should be no condemnation of ourselves or others if it seems necessary to crawl before we walk. The main thing is that we catch the idea of claiming our own power and that we become aware that self-absorbed behaviour is not actually going to get us where we want to go. So we must change. Even so, as our minds and Melvin's mind starts to open wider to new ways of doing things, the motives can still be very mixed. We may be acting out of guilt, or a wish to be seen to look good in front of others, or there may be some combination of motives that do not arise out of pure good-heartedness. Melvin's initial moves are mostly for his own benefit, but gradually he starts to think about what other people might need to function properly. He recognises that when they have problems, this can affect him as well. Then he begins to realise that he may actually have some power to assist with some of their problems and make life better for everyone. And this expands his sense of identity. And although uncomfortable with the sincerity of the gratitude that is expressed to him, for even his selfishly motivated act of kindness, he learns what it's like to feel you have made a positive contribution to the lives of others. Now, by the end of the movie, Melbourne has broken through many barriers and is able to make the enormously generous gesture towards the well-being of his temporarily impoverished neighbour, the gifted gay artist whom he formerly verbally abused on a regular basis. Melbourne is now able to invite his neighbour to live in the spare room of his apartment until the artist recovers from his injuries and can get back on his feet financially. Melbourne gradually comes to live in a dynamic world of relationship, compassion and generosity, and he learns to share his life with others. Charles Fillmore says, without giving, our souls are shrivel. We need to give to others and receive from them. We need to seek to bring harmony into our relationship with everything, experience well-being, and believe in the fundamental goodness of life and other people, so that we can live in a way that is essential for our souls to thrive. The point is that we are all living in a far bigger, grander, universal scheme than self-centred concerns. But we all gain from doing our best to live with the consciousness of this larger picture and awareness. The truth is, we are well supported by the cosmic order of the universe. But it would be possible to live many lifetimes without using this knowledge and understanding for the benefit of humanity at large. Now, I think we don't take to change that easily, as this cartoon shows very well. Who wants change? Who wants to change? Who wants to lead the change? I'm sure the point is well made. I need say no more. Change begins with us, though, and our awareness of universal principles and the recognition of an innate order that can guide our thoughts and outer actions. And if we accept these ideas and responsibility, they ripple out to others by osmosis. Others catch on to what they see happening in our lives. They will notice how we think and feel, and this will begin to affect their own attitudes and beliefs. The thoughts and ideas we hold in our conscious minds matter. So do our unconscious beliefs. And we need to examine those beliefs carefully as soon as they become apparent to us. All this inner work will improve our lived experience, both individually and collectively. And we can make it easier for others to see what is possible for every single one of us by doing that inner work ourselves. At the moment, world peace would seem to represent the pinnacle of human achievement for the current state of growth and global spiritual awareness. I'm quoting from his wonderful book, The Eye of the Storm, when Gary Simmons observes that if consciousness is mesmerized according to ingrained patterns of awareness, the future is simply an extended line from here until tomorrow. Who we are today sets the stage for tomorrow. In other words, unless we get on with it and do the inner work, we will just keep on getting more of the same ingrained patterns of hatred, fear and distrust that are handed down through generations. This is what causes wars and conflicts around the world. Something and someone needs to break the pattern for this to stop. And it begins with each individual taking responsibility for their mental world. Humanity can do much better. And the peace we are seeking must be found within the inner realm of mind first. Then it will outpicture in the manifest world through the law of mind action, mind, idea, and manifestation. Charles Fillmore writes that there is also a psychological reason why people should obey spiritual law. He says, when a person obeys the law of God along any line, his faith immediately becomes strengthened in proportion, and his doubts disappear. When man learns that a higher law than human custom and desire is working in the earth to bring about justice, righteousness, and equalization, he will begin to obey the law. And then man will reach the end of all the troubles brought upon himself by his selfishness and greed, and will become healthy, prosperous, and happy. Like the goldfish who is unaware that the water he is living in is absolutely essential to his survival, we can often ignore the truth of our spiritual identity and the cosmic reality. The fish does not appreciate what has been provided for it. It seems without conscious awareness of the water, just as we can often take for granted the daily air we breathe. The difference being that humans are fully aware that we need air in our lungs to survive, and that breathing is a process designed to energize and preserve our bodies so we can remain alive. All this air is provided for us in orderly supply and exists in harmonious arrangement with the way the body functions. Order is the first law of the universe. Indeed, there could be no universe unless its parts were kept in perfect harmony, says Charles Fillmore in The Mysteries of Genesis. Well, it makes perfect sense, doesn't it? Obviously, we rely on the natural order and harmony of nature and the galaxies. If there were no orbits, the stars and planets would crash into each other. If there was no gravity, we would fall off the surface of the earth, and no trees or plants would be able to grow in soil. The water would evaporate into outer space, etc., etc., etc. Linda Martella Whitsett says, the natural order we sense in the world is a material representation of spiritual order, the intelligent and underlying and overarching, though invisible, order out of which all becomes possible. Order is built into all of life. Order is the architecture of the universe. Each of us by nature is capable of turning to the intelligent order that is the framework, structure, pattern, and sequence at the heart of all that can ever be. We are capable of organising our thoughts, words, and actions in concert with divine order. And moving on to this concept of divine order, if you are wondering why we do not, just enlarge my screen so I can't see it all, hang on. If we do not, does anybody know how to stop it? And you know how to minimise? Sorry, I need to minimise, yes. Ooh. Get that. Does anybody know how to do this? When you've all tapped it and it's enlarged. Anyway, if you are wondering why we do not receive the results, it is important to realise that divine order is not a correction of some unhappy condition, but an integrated arrangement of energy in a pattern, sequence, or method. It outpictures what comes from thoughts, ideas, and minds. Can somebody help me, please, to minimise this? Thank you. I've just got it. Thanks so much. I don't have the right touch at the moment. Anyway. For our desires to come into manifestation, all the right conditions must be met at the inner level of ideas and thoughts before they can manifest. Then our desires will become apparent in physical and temporal reality. It is not that anything is withheld from us, but it simply means that things cannot manifest until every piece is in the right sequence and arrangement, and only then, when there is harmony and order, can what is longed for and affirmed make its way into visibility. When this stage is reached, manifestation is automatic. It cannot be stopped. That is the working of the creative principle, which is why Charles Fillmore is able to say that when the idea of divine order is established in man's thought, his mind and affairs will be at one with universal harmony. Your mind is your world, says Amanda Shanklin. Your thoughts are the tools with which you carve your life story on the substance of the universe. When you rule your mind, you rule your world. When you choose your thoughts, you choose your results. But too often we see out of order signs showing up symbolically in our world. And what do we do about it? As Linda says, we're always challenged to discern the underlying and overarching order inherent in all circumstances. We need to shift our attention from our personal experience to a universal view, from our myopic, self-centered and limited awareness to what might be the deeper appreciation of the meaning of any event. However, she adds, when we suspend human moralism and religiosity regarding the many challenging and disturbing occurrences in our lives, we might more easily access the inherent order that is in every moment in all dimensions. And this is where divine order seems to become something of a paradox, because even when there is something actually awful happening, we are told that all things work together for good, because there is only one presence and one power. If we choose, we can see how the awful event can serve a larger purpose. Whatever it was, it is there to alert us to our wrong thinking and to show us how to get back on the right path. The point of power is always in the present, and this is where we can effect the necessary change. Once we understand the spiritual process and learn the skills. Spirit is the seat of power. Its abode is in the invisible side of man's nature, says Paul Hasselbeck. And he states the principle of spirit inhabits our inner world, and it is our connection to the divine and cosmic order, which is an expression of spiritual law. And although the implicate order of the universe is partly hidden from us, we have insight and intuitive guidance from divine mind. So to sum all this up, it's much easier and more beneficial to make the effort to cooperate and align with divine law than to live in ignorance and attempt to act independently of it. You cannot escape its operation. One way or another, positively or negatively, it will impact your life. And the universe is in no hurry. It has infinite patience and all of eternity to wait for us to get it, to comprehend what is required of us. We need to understand ourselves as individualized spirit with the power of conscious creation, and we need to learn how to use that power. We have the opportunity to see things rightly now. This progress you make in your lifetime has the power to influence the lives of future generations. Unfortunately, there is something Gary Simmons calls the soul's conspiracy in operation that always seeks to urge us forward in understanding. The soul seeks to move us into those areas of life where the full potential has yet to be discerned. This is part of the overall cosmic order implanted in us. And here is another radical idea which he promotes in his book, the proposition that nothing is truly against us and nothing ever can be. He says, conflict can help motivate you. Whatever is going on in your life, and I suppose by extension the world, is there to bring you into greater alignment with truth of who you are. Your life situations and emotional responses can give insight into those parts of you that are not connected to your true selfhood and wholeness. He adds, conflict stretches us, forcing us at times to adapt or to yield, to learn. And that is just what these experiences are intended to do. We can learn from them if we pay sufficient attention. This is the operation of the cosmic order expressed at the level of individualization. Much depends on our willingness to look deeply within and more closely at the places that scare us. When we come to the edge of our comfort zone, we find our growing edges. We are poised for new growth, but we must first be prepared to look. We must uproot then any defensiveness that works against the divine will for harmony. Political systems and governments will never solve humanity's problems by themselves because they address outer situations and not the cause, which is separation from spirit and a lack of understanding about the law. They have not been doing too well so far, but there have been some strides forward, despite the fact that the vital ingredient of spirit and its all-pervasive law has been left out of the equation. Whether we realise it or not, we are all living within cosmic order, and it is an expression of the universal mind of creation itself. People often observe that humanity does not learn the lessons of history, and they don't know why that is. But it's because we have not understood what we are being shown, or perhaps not willing to address it. Our apparent failures are really a vital part of the feedback mechanism from the One Presence, giving us information about what we can do to self-correct, if we choose to do so. Unity exists to serve and help individuals and humanity generally to grow into the overall vision of peace and plenty for everyone. It offers practical teachings about how we can put these ideas into practical use in our own lives. We are invited to lift ourselves beyond the merely human personality and to discover a stratosphere where there is infinite potential to create a planet where people can celebrate and love one another and experience the joys of abundant living, peace and harmony. God bless. And thank you all for being here. Oh, I should have moved the slide. Sorry about that. That's the happy planet. And that's the end of my talk.